All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire. My name is Sydney Williams, and today we are doing camp legit at hosting shows and stuff. So we are going to share a few updates before we get into it today. On the Take a Hike Diabetes side, coming at you live from Rancho San Diego, we are at the Beach Hut Deli, which is my favorite place to eat a sandwich. Surf and bird, lettuce wrapped, no cheese. That's my joint. Highly recommend you come out here and say hi to Tyler, tell him we sent you. This is also Kumeyaay land, which is the ancestral people who came here before we did. And I want to share some updates about Take a Hike Diabetes. As you know, last week we celebrated 5,000 miles towards our million-mile goal. And as far as I'm concerned, we already won. So everything from here is a bonus. When we get to that million miles, I'm going to be the happiest camper. So we are currently sitting at 5,745 miles tracked. Like, we hit 5,000 last week. You guys are crushing it, first of all. So thank you for that. And we are at 86 participants, and we have raised $3,690. So next week, we have a really exciting announcement. As you guys know, I am part of the Salomon Squad, which is a ambassador program for Salomon, who makes the best shoes on the market for hiking and running and any other kind of like outdoorsy activity you want. And also, if you ski, they're pretty awesome too. That's kind of what they're known for. So we have Becky from Salomon joining us next week with a big announcement about our partnership for the Take a Hike Diabetes campaign and how you can get involved. So definitely tune in next week. We'll have more information about all of that coming soon. And a couple other updates on the Take a Hike Diabetes side of things. We have some prizes. You guys met Ross Chocolates last week. Phil was here during my technology meltdown. Phil just like carried us through. He told you all about how good these chocolates are, and I got them in the mail. So I'm going to show you. I would eat all 6 of these if that wouldn't be weird, but I'm going to show you what we got. So first things first, this one is the dark chocolate with hazelnut. So if you log 14 activities, or if you raise $25 in February, you are entered to win a 3-pack of chocolates, and you're going to get a little variety pack from Sydney. I'm going to pick 3 for you, and then I'm going to mail it to you, and you're going to eat them and tell me how delicious they are. So dark chocolate hazelnut is one of the flavors. We also have dark chocolate with sea salt, super delicious. The regular dark chocolate is amazing, huge fan. And then we have Barry's favorite, which is the milk chocolate with quinoa. It's kind of like a Nestle Crunch bar, so tasty. And then we have just a regular milk chocolate. Boom shakalaka, nice and light pink. And then one of my favorites, because it's so funky and so different from anything I've had ever, this is the milk chocolate with lemon and coconut. It's kind of like a chocolate pina colada with lemon. So I don't know. It's not really a pina colada because there's no pineapple, but you know what I mean? It's delicious. So I mentioned last week, these are all sugar-free, they're gluten-free, keto-friendly, GMO-free, and low glycemic. And so the folks at Ross have generously given us a lot of chocolate to send your way, and every bar that we sell goes towards diabetes research. So we will be offering a link to share and a discount code for Ross chocolates. We'll have that for you next week, so you can go buy Ross chocolates after you fall in love with it. And I'm just going to say one more thing about this chocolate. Like, I have tried, as somebody living with type 2 diabetes who also is obsessed with chocolate, and hello, I'm going to like try to be as good as I possibly can, but like also realistic about living life, and life deserves to have chocolate, especially in February where everybody's like chocolate-aholic in every grocery store aisle that you ever go to. The thing I love most about this, and I've tried like every artificially sweetened chocolate on the market, this one does not taste like you have a sweater on your tongue when you're done eating it. It's delicious. So thank you, Ross Chocolates, for all your support. Again, if you register for Take a Hike Diabetes and you track 14 activities, like February 14th, like Valentine's Day, 14 activities this month, or raise $25, you'll be entered to win a 3-pack of chocolate from Ross Chocolates with a little love note from yours truly. And then we also had another challenge this week for fundraising for Take a Hike Diabetes. So if you raise $25 onto the Take a Hike Diabetes platform this week, our friends at Kilter, within the app, you can like click get donations and ask your friends or family or colleagues or enemies, whoever, to support your efforts with Take a Hike Diabetes. If you raise $25 this week, you're also eligible. Well, if you raise $25 this week, you get a year-long membership to All Trails Pro. Hey, and that's the beauty of live stuff. Bye-bye. Sign is gone. That's fine. So if you raise $25 this week, so you have a couple more days to do that within the app. If you raise $25, then you get an All Trails Pro membership. We'll hook you up at the end of the month with that code so you can get that signed up. And then if you do that this week, then you're automatically entered to win the Ross Chocolates prize pack too. So it's like double awesome prizes. So do that. hikingmyfeelings.org/diabetes to get signed up. We have the free 30-day program that offers tips and tricks for living mindfully and in a healthy way. We also have the Million Mile Challenge, which is how you raise money, get prizes, all that cool stuff. And then next week, like I said, we have an awesome announcement from our friends over at Solomon. So P.S. you might win some free shoes if you sign up. I'm just saying, maybe you should do that. So go register today, hikingmyfeelings.org/diabetes. Now, I'm so excited. My first guest is Emily Holland, and this chick's a legend. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So Emily Holland is a podcast producer, editor, and host, as well as a writer in the outdoor space. Growing up on a farm in upstate New York, nature was a big part of her life. She rekindled her love of the mountains and wide open spaces after college when she lived in Boston and would travel up to Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire every weekend to be outdoors. In 2019, she moved to Boulder, Colorado to be closer to the things she loves most in life and to infuse nature into her everyday life. With some therapy and growth while living in Colorado, two of my favorite things, we should talk about that, she decided to stop drinking in February 2020. She believes in the restorative power of nature, but beyond that, the restorative power of self-love. She has released her new podcast, Nature Untold, to capture stories of sobriety, recovery, and addiction in the outdoor community. Emily Holland, come on down. The Price is Right. This is where we dance. If I had music, we'd have music.
Yes, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Man,
it's happening.
That
so the
intro got me fired up. Jeez,
yeah.
I want some of that hazelnut dark chocolate stuff. When the sign fell, I was laughing a lot. So you're crushing it already.
I know. We're like already rolling. So the last time we talked, I was being interviewed for your podcast. And I was in my van in the Barron's parking lot, which is a grocery store in Southern California, in Alpine, California, sweating profusely. And from what I gather, you've had a sweaty day as well. So now the roles are reversed.
They sure are. And I have to say that you are such a professional, because the entire time you complained 0 times until I think the last 5 minutes, you're like, I'm sorry, I'm dripping sweat now. And I was like, I could tell, but you're crushing it. Like every answer, you're giving all these thoughtful thoughts to it. It was just amazing. So such a pleasure. Yeah, I've had a sweaty day.
Yes. So why are you so sweaty?
Well, I don't know about anyone else in the world, but at the end of last year, I was really lacking a lot of motivation. I'm a big trail runner, hiker, runner in general, and I was just like not getting out there. I hated running for a couple months. It just was not for me. And I don't know what it was all about, probably because the underlying anxiety of the pandemic and everything else going on in the world. But I decided I need to get my accountability back. So I started working again with a coach that I had worked with previously, Joe McConaughey, shout out to him. And so I was doing one of his steady state running workouts, and I got back and I was like, oh my gosh, I have like 10 minutes, brush my hair, wipe my face, and here we are. And I had to put on my sweatshirt that, if people are watching, can see practice maximum enthusiasm, because I needed to match your level of energy, Sydney. So
one, I need that hoodie as soon as possible. And two, congratulations on getting back on the train. I'm really excited for you.
Yeah, it is really hard. It's hard. Yeah, but I knew I needed someone to tell me what to do. You know, when you just get in those modes where you're just like, I cannot motivate myself to do anything today. I needed him to just be like, you got to run 4 tomorrow and you got to stretch now. And so I really am glad that we're starting to work together.
Awesome. Yay. Well, I'm really excited to have you here. One, because I just think you're so rad, and I kind of fangirl about your podcasting abilities. For everybody who's been with us since the beginning, we started on Samsung headphones on a MacBook Air. And now if you're enjoying the new and improved audio quality, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's not. That's because Emily recommended this mic. So if it sucks, blame her. And if it's awesome, give her credit.
Yeah, that's kind of my mode for everything. So no worries.
So let's talk a little bit about where do we want to start? Let's talk about you being outdoorsy and not sober, and then we'll talk about like your transition into sobriety. How's that sound? Like where
Yeah,
was
that sounds
when
good.
did like what led to this decision to stop drinking?
Oh yeah, so many things. My relationship with alcohol was what is one of my longest relationships in my life. Like, besides my family, I was drinking alcohol for 15 years. So I started when I was 14. And just even to back up a little bit more, the love of nature. I grew up on a farm, as I said, and I didn't mention that it's a Christmas tree farm, so very magical. But we just were always dirty and like helping on the farm, and we're taking nature walks, and we went camping every year. So we just always were outside. And so that was sort of a happy place to me when we were growing up. And I lost that almost simultaneously when I started drinking at 14. I started drinking, and that was it. I was like, this is the way that I will connect with people. This is the way in which I will have confidence in myself. This is the way in which I will feel sexy, like all the things that I think a lot of people probably resonate with when it comes to drinking. And so it became my partner in life for so long. And my therapist said something interesting recently, which is a sentence that I use often. My therapist said something interesting recently. That's what I say like every day. It's either that or this interesting podcast I listen to. And, she said something interesting where she honored that I was done with alcohol, but she also offered that, this is a long-term relationship. It was there for a lot of your life. It saw you through a lot of pieces of it. Maybe grieve it. Maybe, like you would a long-term relationship that you've just broken up with. So anyways, going back to why I wanted to stop drinking, I just abused alcohol for a long time. The last couple of years, I started to really try to be curious about my relationship with it, tried to do dry months here and there just to see, is just to take a break really. But then in the beginning of 2020, before everything went insane, I was like doing a dry month, and it was, I do a dry month in January every year. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then I got to February 1st and we went skiing. And I remember I was with a few friends back when we could like hang out with friends, and we all were, barbecuing afterwards, and we were just having a good time. And I remember I had one Truly seltzer, not a dig on them, but I had a Truly seltzer, and I immediately was mad. I was angry. I was picking fights with my partner. I saw a complete mental shift. And I think that because I had gone back to therapy and I was able to kind of understand like what my reaction was about and how I was feeling, that was a big trigger for me and saying like, I actually don't think this is for me anymore. And there was no, night in jail or, losing my home or anything like that, which those things happen too. But there are a lot of these stories where people come up against it and they just decide that it's no longer good for them. And so that's where I got to. And then I stopped and said, I'm going to give myself 3 months. I don't want to say forever, because that kind of thinking doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for a lot of people I know that like, and then I got to 3 months. I was like, this is great. Let's keep going. And then it got a little harder, but yeah, that was kind of the catalyst, is sort of just feeling like I'm finally in a place where I am in a healthy relationship. I've started this crazy concept of like liking myself, which is like this weird new thing for me. And alcohol just wasn't fitting into that and into the life that I wanted to create.
Oh, I love that. So many good things to jump in on there. I love in particular the part about like acknowledging that all or nothing thinking is not your jam. I know we've got a bunch of people in our community that are either sober or sober curious. And that seems to be the trend, is like more often than not, people are like, I gave myself 3 months. And then I was like, oh my God, I like love my sober self. Why would I interrupt this? It's so wonderful. And so I can totally relate to that too with regards to my diabetes diagnosis. Like I didn't have some drunk in an alley, like rock bottom as you see it in the movies moment. It was just, I got diagnosed with a chronic illness, and apparently drinking a bottle of wine to yourself every night is not a good way to manage diabetes. So like, maybe I should stop doing that. Yeah.
Who knew?
It's just like totally shocking. It's like just drinking sugar. It's great. So let's talk about, because like this month our theme is self-care is community care. And in the spirit of Valentine's Day and all these things where we're like conditioned to outwardly love other people, certainly before we love ourselves. I'd love to hear about how your journey with sobriety then informed this podcast, where now you're bringing these stories and creating a community around sobriety, especially in the outdoors. Because the thing that I really enjoyed connecting with you on during my episode of your podcast was just how outrageous it is that we like how pervasive drinking is in every industry, but especially in the outdoors, where it's like, we're going on hikes and we're crushing beers. Like, that's not safe. We're going to outdoor retailer and we start drinking at 11 a.m. or whatever it is. So what was it about your journey that kind of inspired this podcast and to create a community around sobriety?
Yeah, well, I had been writing a little bit for the outdoor industry for a few years, and I had been producing another podcast called The Stokecast with a co-host, co-producer, Jonathan Ronzio. And we were interviewing outdoor athletes, pro athletes, entrepreneurs, and adventurers, whatever. So mostly like, quite honestly, like big names, quote unquote, right? And so we're talking to them about these like brand identities and like building your brand and how to be an entrepreneur and going out into the big mountains and all this sort of epic stuff. And it was really, really interesting. But I think with a combination of like moving to Boulder, understanding myself more, going back to therapy, all these things kind of converging, I was just feeling like I want to get more to the nitty gritty of the human experience. Like, I'm more interested in hearing about the darkness and the light of this hard experience that you had. And because that's more relatable to me, you know, I'm never going to be a pro athlete. I don't want to be. It's not a goal of mine. And so I loved those conversations. I learned so much in that experience, but then I just kind of felt this nagging of like, I kind of want to try something on my own. And then I got sober and I was like, there's no concentrated place where these types of stories are being told specifically about like sobriety, addiction, and recovery in the outdoor community. And not just from alcohol, from drugs, there's some people who we talked to on this first season who have codependency addiction, who have love addiction and sex addiction. There's so many topics that we can explore. And so I kind of just put feelers out to different sober groups that I knew about or sober people I knew about. And I was like, oh, do you think this is a good idea? Like, would you want to hear these stories? Are people willing to share them? And the response I got was pretty overwhelming. And so I think the combination too, again, all these things kind of coming together at the right time, is me being sober, having clarity of mind for the first time in a very long time, and confidence in myself. Another newfound thing I didn't know existed for myself, which is fun. And all those things together, I'm like, you know what? I can do this on my own. I had always been thinking like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And now this shift was happening where I was like, oh, actually I can. So I'm just going to do it. And what came back, the response to people being, you know, like you responded to in one of the big groups we're in Facebook, there was like hundreds of comments on that. And I was overwhelmed. I was like, holy hell, this is tapping into something. People have been doing a lot of great work in this type of community for a while. So I won't say that I'm like any sort of pioneer by any means, but I think people were sort of clamoring for this type of their stories being told in a way. They want to feel seen and heard. And it's often such a misunderstood space that we just need more voices to it. To your point before, I mean, the more that we can share our own stories about recovery and the good and bad of the experiences, whether it be sobriety, sober curious, whatever it is, that's an individual act to share that, but it helps so many other people. Like the amount of messages I've gotten already from this first season is like, well, you probably get all this stuff all the time from Hiking My Feelings, but it like oh, it like really floors me when I get it. So it's been really, really beautiful. And I cannot tell enough people about it, like for long enough, because I'm just so excited about where we can go with it too.
Yeah, I like that how open it is with it's not just sober curious like that. And that's a great place to start, but also all the other different areas of recovery and addiction that you talked about. You've mentioned a couple times, and I'm going to jump back to this. Self-love is a new thing. Self-confidence is a new thing. And at the beginning you were like, so I'm going to start drinking at 14 because this is where I find my confidence. This is where I find my love. This is how I feel sexy. So for the folks that are, I think, on the curious side of things, because that's kind of where the curiosity starts, I think, for a lot of folks, is like, is there a better way to like feel awesome? Like, is the bottle of wine per night like the solution? What was that transition like, going from this is how I feel these things to this is an issue, to where you're like, wait a minute, I'm kind of awesome. This is wild. What was that like?
It's definitely still an evolving process, but like, there is nothing more beautiful, I think, in an existence than continuing to know yourself more and more. Like, that is the most enjoyable aspect of my life at any given moment and a lot of that comes from people, communicating to you different things that you see in yourself, but you didn't realize yet, or whatever it is. But I think that people are scared to look under the hood, and understandably, a lot of people have trauma. A lot of people have, healing that is going to be really painful for sure. And that makes a lot of sense. And I was there too for 15 years of my life. Right. And I still am, to a degree. There's still some things that scare me and I'm not ready to like poke the bear about. But at the end of the day, if you are on your deathbed and you're looking back and you're like, I don't even know who I am. Like, I mean, what a sad state that would be. What a sad statement. So I often try to think about my life in that realm of like, what would I feel if I was dying right now? Like that's truly what I think about for a lot of big decisions that I've made. And the other thing is like, the more that you know yourself, the more that you can create boundaries, which create better relationships, the more that you can have, well, I don't want to brag, but the more that you can have better sexual experiences with yourself and with others, the more in tune you are with what your body needs. So you don't need to be sober for all of those things, like totally up to you. But I think just the continuous exploration of self is like the thing that I also get really freaking fired up about. I don't know if I can swear on this, so I'm just gonna
I've been known to drop a bomb or two here.
Okay, I'll say freaking. Yeah.
Oh man, and you're so right. Like, it is this evolution. And I really like the part about waking up, like if you're on your deathbed, that has, and I don't know if this makes me like baby narcissist or something, but like that has really changed the way I live my life just in general. Because, and the way that I came into that realization was when I was competing in skydiving. Like when I first started skydiving, like the very first summer, the first person who I knew who died was my friend's wife, and she died in a skydiving accident in Colorado. And it was the first fatality where I like knew a person. Like people die, I don't want to say people die in skydiving all the time, but like deaths of experienced skydivers are more frequent than those of students. And so there are a handful. The community is small. So it feels like once you get into the sport, it's like, these people that are passing away. And so this was the first one. And there's this trend on Facebook, and I think it's probably still going on to this day, where it's like the people pass away and then there's this like onslaught of stories and love and videos and pictures. And that's a natural way to grieve, like keep their memories alive. But I couldn't help but think like, one, what would be possible if the people could hear this while they were still on this planet? But two, as it pertains to my life, like, what are people going to say about me when I die? Like, because as of right now, what are they going to, like, at that point in time, I was still working in marketing in Chicago. I was working at the largest global PR firm. I had just started skydiving. I was just starting to like date Barry. And that was really all I had going on, which like is a lot, but like ultimately, like, what's my legacy? And that really like made me pause and think like, how am I showing up? Like, am I the most expressed I can be in this body in this lifetime as Sydney? Am I making a difference in the world? Because like Sydney writes tweets for the Wienermobile is like not a cool headstone slogan, right? Like here she lies, used to write hot dog puns. Like that's not cool. So is there an element of that in sobriety and recovery as well, where it's like, do I want this to be part of my story? Like, is that something that's come up for you too?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'll be celebrating my year next week. So it's come so fast. Oh my God. But I think that it's not that I don't want it to be part of my story in an external way. Like, I just don't want it clouding up my experiences. I mean, at the very basic level, that's what I feel like it does for me again. And so I think that the way in which I want to be remembered, that's not part of the equation. Now, again, the forever thing, it's like my life might change, and I'm letting myself be open to that change, right? Like right now, for me, I don't see myself drinking again. Does that mean I never will again? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in 40 years. Like, I don't know what's going to be going on in the world. Like, so I think that I don't think of it as like I don't want someone to write like she drinks on my headstone, but it's also like so much more of an internal tool for me than an external, like, I don't want people to know me for that. But I like the conversation that you're going down, which is sort of like, what is my legacy? And I think that has to do with community care as well, because, we've both started something. You have this amazing like organization that's doing such great work, and I'm trying to create community around these sobriety pieces. And like, those aren't, in the grand scheme of things, it's not like I created Coca-Cola, like I'm not going to be like a famous person, but I do think there's validity in wanting, maybe it's not notoriety, but it is like being a leader in something. And that comes naturally to me, or I feel like it comes naturally, and it's a calling for me. So I think that's the other thing too, is like, what is your calling? Like, have you figured out what is your purpose? What is your calling? And then lean into that. And it's okay to want notoriety for hard work that you're doing. That's okay. And for a long time, especially for women, I think it's really hard for us to be like, I want to be known for that. Like, I want someone to know my name for that. And so I think that that's an okay thing as well. And that's kind of, we're kind of tangential to the community piece, because once you put your purpose out into the world, obviously the community comes and they'll see it. And the people who are meant to see it and hear it and receive it do.
Oh, just rewind and repeat everything so I can jump in, because I'm like, yes, all of the above. So one thing that really stuck out to me was the timing of your sobriety. Because one of the things that you mentioned was like, I don't know where life's going to be in 40 years. And my initial reaction was like, well, if you can get through 2020 without drinking, like,
that's 40 years in itself.
Yeah, right. And also the span of time, it feels like 8 lifetimes. But talk to me a little bit about like, what was it like being like making this decision, and then like 6 weeks later, the world is melting down? Because if drinking is a coping mechanism and you're learning how to be sober and you're going through these motions of like what that means for you, like, was it ever like, oh, I picked the wrong time? Or was it just like, oh, I'm actually really glad that I'm sober for this so I can process it clearly?
Yeah, there was definitely times where I was not glad I was sober, but I will say because I had been so used to like taking months off here and there throughout the last couple of years, which I think is a great way for people to like dip their toe into if they're curious about what a sober life is like. Because I had already done that so many times, the first 3 months, I was like, this is easy. I almost got very cocky. I wouldn't say almost. I got very cocky. I was like, sobriety's so easy. Why is it so hard for everyone else? What the hell? And that was funny, because then I like look back at my journal and I was like, damn, you were really thinking you were the best, didn't you? Because then 3 months later, when we were 6 months in, And it got to be, you know, around the time of like the RNC and the DNC and all these like external political events are happening. That was challenging for me. And so it was actually like 6 to 9 months was really, really hard for me, probably because we were still in the midst of a pandemic and also going through a historical election. But I think during those times, the things that were really helpful were journaling still, therapy, of course. And then every time you have a hard situation, and this goes for things that are not drinking either, but like anytime you have a hard situation and it's like the hardest thing, you don't think you're going to get through it, but then you get to the other side, you're like, I can do anything. This is it. You know, like anytime you get through a hard situation, the next hard situation is a little less hard. And so there were a few nights where, I mean, I loved wine very much. And we had our own Thanksgiving here, just the two of us. And my partner still drinks, which is totally fine. And he had wine. And I was like, tonight is really hard for me not to drink that because I'm associating with the holiday and it smells so good. And I want a little bit. And, you know, I didn't. And then I communicated, you know, I was like, you know what, this is really hard for me right now. And I think that's important too, communicating with the people around you. If it is hard, can we just not have wine in the house for the next like month? I just need to get through like this little hump and then, you know, we'll be good from there. So I think it's also like, you're going to have moments, like it's ingrained in our society and our culture to want to drink, especially around the holidays, especially around like big major events in your life. And it's okay to admit that you want to drink. Like it is a substance. And also it is ingrained in your brain, especially if you've had a 15-year plus relationship with it. So I think people are a little scared that, oh, this means I'm not good at sobriety. It's like, no, it means that you're exactly good at sobriety because you got through the hard thing. It was hard. You named it. It's hard. And then you moved on.
Yes. My Lord. So talking about, I'm like, there's so many things. So leadership being building communities and wanting to some level of notoriety. Like one, I'm really glad that you didn't invent Coca-Cola because if you did, then you would be contributing to the diabetes pandemic in America.
That was a bad example. I was like,
no, but I know what you mean.
I was like, Apple, that's also bad. All of them are
right.
bad.
Yeah. But I think, and that's something that I've really been kind of stepping into just with hiking my feelings. And are you friends with Anastasia from Kula Cloth? Or aware of Anastasia?
I'm aware of her, and she is a great follow on Instagram because she's so funny. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So Anastasia is like, she's kind of like this spiritual being that I'm pretty sure isn't from this planet. And I really enjoy her presence and her energy. And one of the things that she does this Kula Power Hour every month. And I went to the one, I think it was yesterday. And it's just like she leads a meditation and then there's like a theme and you just kind of talk around the theme. And the theme was forward motion and thinking about like how to redirect your energy from like, don't focus on the things you don't want, start focusing on the things you do. And some of it's like for folks that aren't like into spirituality and energy and like the woo, it can be a lot. But I think the intention behind it and the like legitimacy behind it is so clutch, like in this particular space and time where we have an opportunity, like coming out of 2020 where there were all these changes. You got sober, we're all working from home, the world is totally different, the way we recreate is different, the way we socialize is different. Instead of focusing on like what isn't working, focusing on what is and like what are the good things we can take from 2020, the opportunities, the lessons, etc., to look ahead to 2021 and as we continue to build these communities. So I'm curious, like as a person who aspires to be a leader and also, hi, I'm in the same boat. I'd like to be, I don't want to be like paparazzi famous. Like I watched the Britney Spears documentary and like, I don't want that life. That's not for me. Crazy. But like,
it's a separate podcast.
But like, yeah, I'm not wanting paparazzi, but like, I didn't set out on this journey to be anonymous either. Like I want to be known for the work that I'm doing. And I think that there is a big like that also makes me want to throw up all over my keyboard saying that out loud, to be like, I'd like to be recognized and understood and like heard and seen. But these are like basic fundamental concepts of being human, that we all have needs that need to be met. So like, was there anything from 2020 that just really was a big light bulb for you that has kind of informed how you're moving into 2021 with the work that you're doing and the community that you're building?
Yeah, every year I have sort of a word that I try to live by. And this year is energy. And the reason for that is, well, I told you about my lack of energy at the end of last year around running, but it was really all encompassing. Like I was not motivated to do anything, and it was really, really hard. And I know a lot of people were in that boat. And I wanted to honor that, but I also wanted to somehow create accountability with myself to like really focus in 2021. And so the things that we learned in 2020 is like, who do you want in your life? What do you want in your life? What makes you joyful? What makes you sad? What is important in the existence of our life? That big existential questions like that. And so I shied away from doing resolutions necessarily. I was just thinking, okay, energy is my word. Where do I want to spend my energy? Meaning like, what do I want to give my time to? But depending on what I love, okay, how much energy do I want to give certain people in my life? Because there was some people that I was trying to like cycle out because they were too toxic for me. And so I just had to get rid of them. You cut. And also like, what energy am I bringing to situations that I'm in, like this podcast or like this session or another podcast or my podcast, or all of them are podcasts. Jesus, relax, Emily. But you know what I mean? We're not going to physical places right now, so I can't really bring my energy anywhere else. But how am I showing up? What do I want to show up as? And that's really important to me too, because that is community care in itself. Like that is, you're taking accountability for yourself. It's not to say that everyone needs to like you and like the energy that you're bringing, but are you showing up with alignment to your integrity and how you want to show up? So those were like the questions that were rocking around in my head in the beginning of the year. And I mean, already, like a lot of people have probably experienced, I don't feel like there was any break in the year and we just kept going. And so there's a real level of burnout that I'm trying to reckon with right now. And I know a lot of other people are as well. And so it's, how do I get back to the questions I was grappling with, but also being gentle with myself, realizing that, hey, we're still in a pandemic and like, things are happening still. So it's okay that you're not entirely focused, but those are the things that I really want to, keep bringing back to the forefront, keep writing about in my journal, and keep, trying to bring to the spaces that I inhabit.
Yeah, we lead a program called Blaze Your Own Trail to Self-Love, and at the beginning of the year we kick off our 12-week intensive, and that's a big portion of I think it was last week. Yeah, last week we were teaching people how to feel their feelings, like where do you feel it in your body, stuff like that. And then have you read the Desire Map by Danielle Laporte?
No, you always give me so many good books. Let me write that down.
Write it down. So her whole thing is called Core Desired Feelings, which is exactly what you just described. But she usually picks like 3 or 4 words, and it's like a system to set goals with soul. So like you use the SMART model for setting goals, but then also like, how do I want to feel in pursuit of these goals? And how do I want to feel once I've accomplished them? And then those words or those feelings kind of become like your bumpers. Like if your life is a bowling alley, I went bowling like 2 weeks ago, so this is like my new thing. But if your life is a bowling alley, like the words become your bumpers. So as you have opportunities or relationships or different experiences, like, is this aligning with those words? So like my words in 2018 were generous, grounded, and joy. And those haven't really shifted. But like I wanted to be generous with my time and talent. I wanted to be grounded in the work that I do and in my body. And I wanted everything that I could possibly do to bring joy, because I had been in a cycle of like just sadness for a really long time. So I love what you were saying about your word and how that has kind of informed what you're doing this year and how to get back to that, especially on an energetic level, because and everything could be like, you could be like, Sydney just invited me to her podcast. Like, what does that do for my energy? And also like, how can I show up in that space? I really like energy as a word in that way. So talk to me a little bit, because you wrote a really great post about, because you mentioned therapy being part of your journey in sobriety and getting back to therapy when you moved to Boulder. I want to talk a little bit about your recent post about like the privilege of having access to therapy. And I know that you're doing a really cool fundraiser this month with your podcast. Like, let's talk a little bit about that and what you're doing to help increase accessibility to therapy for folks.
Yeah. So, I think it's a fact that therapy is privileged. People can, fight me on that. That's fine. But it costs money. You need healthcare a lot of the times to get it. Sometimes it's not available in your area. And if you're not someone who wants to do virtual therapy, which many people are not, and many people don't even trust virtual settings anyways, that's a barrier to entry. Internet is a barrier to entry. And these types of issues are predominantly, hitting marginalized groups, people of color, the LGBTQIA communities. So it is just, I talk a lot about therapy, and I think a lot of times people assume that it's available to everyone. And a lot of my friends are in therapy, like everyone I really know is in therapy. But it's about creating more awareness around how therapy could actually be so much more effective and so much more helpful for all of our communities if so many more people had access to it in a way that felt genuine for them. And so, we're not necessarily doing the work around it. I try to do, some resources that I've sourced from some people of color who have great outlets, like Shayla Martin was a recent one. And so what we're doing in February is I just really wanted to honor in a way that was helpful to Black Heritage Month, thinking about like, okay, how is my existence in the world and my therapeutic relationship a privilege, and how can we maybe come together and offer more to Black communities? And so there's a great foundation started by Rachel Cargill, who's fantastic person and a great follow as well on Instagram. Just so much knowledge. It's amazing. And she started this group called the Loveland Foundation. It basically offers therapy to Black girls and Black women. And so we're doing a fundraiser on that. And I opted to just not include any fundraiser. Like we're not doing like Kickstarter or whatever the things are, because I don't want a percentage of people's money taken away. I want it all to go directly to the foundation. So I know it's like weird, but people are just Venmoing me directly. And then I'm going to screenshot everything and make sure everyone, gets to see how much we've raised. So we're already over $600, and my goal was $500 for the month. And it's awesome. Like, I can't believe how generous people have been already. And so now I'm like, let's go to 1,000. And so we're going to hopefully get to 1,000 from the community, and I'll match 250 of that as well. So it'll hopefully be 1,250 to the Loveland Foundation. And the cool thing about it is that not only can people donate and, obviously support these Black girls and women, but they can also, they'll be entered into a raffle to win some gear from UST. So all things great.
Shout out to UST showing up. I love it.
UST is the best. They're also the sponsor for season 1. So they are great people. Shout out to John Holdmeyer, my heart, that guy. So good. But yeah, so I'm super excited about that. And I want to try to do a little bit more of that as we move forward, to try to continue to support marginalized groups that don't necessarily have the same access to resources as we white folks do.
I love that. And what a nice way to actually like give people an opportunity to take action and show up, especially during this month. So
wait, I should count out my Venmo. My Venmo is Emily Holland, like the country, 14. Emily Holland 14. And when you send me it, I'm commenting back to everyone to let them know that I've received it. And so I'm kind of tracking it all in a spreadsheet. So thank you, anyone who can support, and any amount of donation will go into the raffle. Just include like your email or your Instagram handle or whatever.
So good.
I had to shout it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mary, for prompting that, because that was my next shout it out. So I know we have some folks in the audience that probably have some questions. So if you have questions, go ahead and pop on your camera. This doesn't have to be like asked and answered. Like if you want to have a conversation with us, like let's have an actual conversation. Mary is one of my I can't have favorites, but like Mary's one of my favorite people. And she is also on a sobriety journey. So Mary, I'm really glad that you're here and that you were able to make it for this campfire today.
Hey, Mary.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, your hair is
great.
insanely beautiful. Wow.
Oh, geez.
And she glows all the time. It's unfair.
She's got the swoop. That's what my boyfriend calls that. The swoop down.
Swoop.
It looks so good. Yeah.
Well, I got sweaty today and that was dry shampoo. So I highly recommend
Preach.
it. When Sydney told me that I was going to love you, I had no idea like how much we would have in common. So I'm on a very, very similar journey. Sounds like I started a few weeks after you, March 8th, 2020.
Awesome.
And,
almost at a year. That's amazing.
Yes. And my intention was 3 months at the time.
Oh my gosh.
I waited until my, like mom's night out 80s pub crawl. I wanted to do that first. So the next day was going to be my first day and it was going to be 3 months to get me to summertime. And then, I realized, I actually don't know when I realized that like I wanted to do it for way longer for the, who knows how long, maybe forever.
Yeah.
I really appreciated you being honest about kind of like maybe forever, maybe not. You don't know what the future holds, but like for now, yes. So I just appreciated all of your honesty about kind of where you're at. I also started my relationship with alcohol. I like that phrase that you used, at the age of 14.
Oh my gosh, we are the same, Mary.
I know. However, I hadn't done the math until just now. And that was a 28-year relationship with alcohol, which is twice the amount of years of the age that I was. And I don't even think I'm that old. So that's really scary and like way too long. And just to think about what I've done to my body, I'm making up for lost time. So
yeah.
Anyways, I wanted to just ask you, do you have like a sober community other than like the people that you talk with on your podcast? Do you have like a sobriety group or one, like a person or a group of people that are different maybe from just your regular close friends and family that are specifically kind of like a sober, safe community for you? And what does that look like?
Yeah. So there's a couple more like larger groups that I would recommend that I think are really awesome. So the Tempest, I don't know if you've heard of them. I read her book right before I quit drinking, and her name is Holly Whitaker. It's Quit Like a Woman, which kind of was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Right?
That was just recommended to me and I'm waiting for it to come to me from the library. I might just
do a little book check.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's on what's her name? Holly
Whitaker. She's awesome.
Okay. So she's on my list. Yep.
And then Laura McCowan wrote this amazing memoir, and then she created a group called the Luckiest Club, and they have like a membership. I've attended a couple of their meetings and they're awesome. There's all kinds of different meetings, like for types of people and different diverse groups. And I just really like the way that they structure their stuff. And then with a couple of people that I interviewed on the podcast, we've just sort of created a small group of women who meet like once a month or something like that. We're trying to get it more of a real cadence. So I've just sort of knew like when it was really hard at like 6 months, I was like, I need more people in here because I'm going, a little nuts by myself. And so, yeah, I think those three. And then there's just amazing groups on Facebook, as you know. Like, I know that's not the same as like having virtual
I quit
connection.
Facebook the same time as alcohol.
That's a great call. Never mind. But there's great meetups. Meetups is a great way. And then I know that even though I personally don't use AA, but I know that's a big deal for a lot of people. But even through that, a lot of people will like go to a couple meetings, take the people they like and then like just have those connections from there. So
Okay, great.
those are a couple of pieces that have been helpful for me, but it's good for you getting off Facebook. Freaking Facebook.
I poke in on Instagram every once in a while, and it's mostly just like literally people that Sydney has had on the virtual campfire.
Yeah.
That's like what my Instagram feed is. So it's all really good stuff. But yeah, Facebook wasn't good for me. So
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you. And I'm excited to know about you now and the work that you're doing. And I can't wait to listen to your podcast. So thanks.
Thanks, Mary. It was so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Hey. Anybody else have questions or comments or thoughts they'd like to share with Miss Emily? One of the things that I really like about the journey is that you're on is, like Mary was saying, like, I love the phrase relationship with alcohol. I love the open-endedness of it, but like a deep commitment to where you are currently. And I feel like that's a recipe for success with anything, right? Like, have you seen other areas of your life improve as a result? Not just because you weren't drinking anymore, but like the system or the discipline or whatever words you want to use to describe it that you use to maintain your sobriety, has that transformed other areas of your life as well?
Yeah, I think that getting comfortable with that non-black and white thinking that we were talking about earlier is so helpful for so many other things. Like, it has been so helpful for my physical training that I do for like trail running. It has been so helpful for my relationship with climbing, which I was always historically super hard on myself about, and was like, you need to be a pro climber. And I never was gonna be again. And to have the nuance of being like, I feel like climbing today, maybe I don't, or I like to go to the gym, but I don't really care about climbing outside. So just giving myself a bit more permission through that gray thinking a little bit more, it's been really helpful for that. And then the same thing too, where it's like, I know you have this too. You have this drive to like keep building, keep going, almost like not an addiction to work, but it's like, it's kind of bordering that a little bit for me, at least. And I had a good amount of time during the middle of the year where I could just be like, actually, I'm going to read for 4 hours on the couch this morning. And that's going to be my like drop in the bucket for my future Emily, you know? And so just having a bit more gray and nuance has been like so helpful for my life, because although it's not a perfect practice, there's times where I'm like, you're the worst, Emily, get your shit together. Oh, sorry. But there's
oh my gosh, she said poop.
Oh no. There's also so many more times per day that I actually like myself, believe in myself, give myself the grace, I'm generous with myself. So yeah, I think it's definitely transpired. I don't think I would have the new podcast also if I didn't. I mean, I literally wouldn't have the energy to do it. So on top of like my, 40-hour work week that I work. So yeah, I think it's like that kind of thinking can help you in anything, can help you in eating too. I had a lot of disordered eating for a lot of my life, and I've gotten to a better place with that, not because of stopping drinking, but just that gray thinking, it puts too much pressure on ourselves to be like, you are never going to do this and you are this forever. And that's it.
Yeah, that's a big thing we try to unlearn and unpack in our Blaze Your Own Trail program, because like that, the black and white is just what really, the boxes are just lethal, honestly. One of the things that like kind of on our way out here, one of the things that we initially connected on was when you moved to Colorado, you were like, the West Coast is so like hardcore about outdoorsy stuff. Like everybody's like really celebratory. Whereas in New England, you kind of compared it to like a deeper connection with just the experience of being outside. I'm curious, how has that and sobriety kind of like weaved together? Like has that changed at all since you got sober? Or is it still like the West Coast is like super hardcore?
I think that it remains hardcore. Like, I don't think that being sober, I think being sober, I called it out, and I had the gusto to call it out a little bit, and not everyone was happy about that. And that's fine. Listen, I know that some people are elite athletes. That's great. If that's your calling and that's what you feel like you're here to do, like, cool. if I have a conversation with you and you cannot stop talking about climbing grades and like moves on a climb, that's not interesting to me, and I don't care. So just move on, you know? But so I think that for a long time when I first moved to Boulder, which Boulder, I don't want to say all of the American West, because I think there's other towns that like have a bit more of like a grungy vibe, and it's like people love to be in nature, and that's great. But in Boulder, there's this like huge group of elite athletes. They all live here, they train here, so you see a lot of them all the time. And so coming from the New England area, where if I went up and like camped for the weekend, people in my office were like, "What did you do? That's crazy," you know? And so to come here and then I'm like hiking up a mountain in Boulder and someone's sprinting up it next to me, I mean, I'm now the person that's like, that's crazy. And it's just the culture around it. I mean, it's pervasive in the climbing gyms. It's all this like, almost like machismo kind of like strutting around. Like, I am the baddest ass athlete out here. Ooh, said butt too. And, and I was just getting kind of freaking sick of it, honestly. Part of that is certainly me. Like, they're not trying to offend me with their fitness. I know that. But also, the vibe is there. It's not invisible. Other people have mentioned it to me too. So many people in that Facebook group that I posted it in were like, totally agree with this. And so, I mean, it's just like, everyone relax, you know? You have one life. If that's what you want to do, awesome. But it just shouldn't be like everything, in my opinion. So anyways, I'm probably going to upset some people with that statement too, but it's just, that's how I feel. So there you go.
Yeah, there it is. So if you had a magic wand and you could just kind of like wave it around, what would you like, what would you change about just like the world in general as it pertains to drinking and sobriety and recovery?
I would definitely remove the stigma of substance use. And I would denormalize, is that a word? I don't know. Stop normalizing alcohol use. When I think about addiction and sobriety and recovery and all these pieces, it is such a societal problem. It is the lack of connection that we have with each other. It is societal conditioning telling us that we are not good enough at all times. Living in a capitalist society, it's always more, 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 more. How can I get what they have? How can I have what they have? And so all of those things coming together are like this perfect soup for, add an addictive substance to that. Okay, obviously you're going to get addicted to it. You're going to use it as a crutch. Like, that's, you know, not everyone agrees with the term addiction or feels like that describes them, which is totally fine. I don't agree with that either. But I do think that we look at it then when we see someone who's like, they're an addict. They say they're an addict. Not my problem. It's like, no, you are the part of the society that created this problem. So, you know, once we start having more open conversations about, okay, this person had this experience, this person had this experience, but they're all connected and they're all about lack of connection. Okay, that's a community problem. That's a society problem. And to look at someone and be like, that's not my problem, is a really reductive and limited view, and also quite selfish. So I think that if we can start to have empathy and understanding, which is, you know, part of what I'm trying to do with Nature Untold as well, these things are natural to happen. And it takes a lot of bravery to not do them anymore. Like, it takes a lot of bravery and resiliency because of how we're conditioned. And so I would just want everyone to understand substances a bit more. I would want our marketing organizations and these big corporations like Anheuser-Busch or whoever to maybe quit it, you know, maybe don't align happiness with alcohol on a Super Bowl commercial. Maybe that's part of it.
That's a good start.
Yeah, I know I'm rambling, but there's so much I would change. And those are the main things.
Yeah, no rambling at all. And it's funny, I was doing a panel about access for people with diabetes. Like, what does access mean to you? What challenges have you had with access? And they did the magic wand question. I was like, buckle up, sister. We're talking about capitalism. We're talking about corporations. Like, I can go on until I'm but there are, and everything's intertwined and all of it is connected. And I think like even the phrase self-care is community care is not something that I coined. So I do not want credit for that. That has been utilized and championed by the Black community for time immemorial. So that is not, we've got to start just realizing like the things that we've been through, and this is at the root of everything we do here at Hiking My Feelings, and it's the root of everything you just said, like the stories that we have and the hard stuff we've survived is what connects us, like on a ground level. Like we have so much more in common than we are different, just based on sobriety or recovery or diabetes or trauma or your love for the outdoors. Like if we stop focusing on all of our differences and start celebrating those, and also really coming together and being brave and sharing these stories, I really truly do believe we could have a way better experience as humans in meat suits on this spinning rock going through outer space. So for everybody that is unfamiliar, where can we find you? How can we follow you? And what do you have coming up that we can get stoked about?
Everything. So I definitely follow the Nature Untold podcast. On Instagram, it's Nature Untold Podcast. Unsurprisingly, on Facebook, we have a private group called Nature Untold Podcast. And that is really meant to, we have like some prompts in there. That's really meant to start to create a community. I know it's on Facebook, but hopefully eventually it can go beyond that. Around it. And you do have to agree to certain rules of engagement when you get into that. So that's a great place. And then my personal Instagram is E_HOLLZ. Pretty embarrassing. Have to keep it. It's been my name for a long time. So just got to keep it. And also email. Like I don't really love being on social media more than I have to. So email is emily@ehalls.com.
Boom. Emily@ehalls.com. And also Emily Holland 1414 on Venmo if you want to chip in a few bucks for the Loveland Foundation fundraiser that she's doing. Emily, thank you so much for being here. I want you to be here for forever. And if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. We like to close out with a group gratitude circle, and that'll be going down in about 30 minutes. But if you got to split, thanks for being here, and thanks for being you.
I got a jet, but I love you all. And I love you, Sydney. I can't wait to talk next time.
Yay. Perfect. Thanks for being here.
All right. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Thanks, Emily.
Yay. So let's do a little chit chat here about the Summit Circle, because a lot of people have been wondering like, oh my gosh, how do I join the Summit Circle? How do I get to hang out with these cool people on Zoom? How do I get to win epic prizes? And the Summit Circle is where it's at. So we have launched this community. It is a big dream of mine to have a space where people can just show up as themselves without the masks, without all this armor that we wear to protect ourselves in the world, and just be kind of like raw and gooey and figure out how to turn into butterflies. So that's what the Summit Circle is to me. We are opening up. We've opened it up, and we are in week 2 of this membership program. And one of the things that I love most about it is the different affinity group calls that we have every week. So on Mondays, Barry, who is my adventure buddy for life, my partner in crime for all things Hiking My Feelings and others, is a hiking and backpacking planning and safety meeting. So if you have questions about gear, if you have questions about animals, plants, things that are dangerous, every Monday we meet at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and Barry just kind of lets everybody ask some questions, and we have some themes, and he gives some homework, and it's not too hard and you're not being graded, but it is stuff that can help you feel safe and educated in the outdoors. And then we also have the different affinity groups that rotate on Tuesdays. So from 3 to 4 Pacific, every other Tuesday, we alternate with our Queer Out Here group, which is led by one of our community members, Josh. And then we also have the Global Majority Hour, which is for Black, Indigenous, and people of color adventure seekers, led by our Director of Social Responsibility, Gabatia. And we also have another group that meets at 4:30 p.m. Pacific on Tuesdays. And that alternates with Mary, who you just met here chatting with Emily a little bit earlier. And she leads our Sober and Sober Curious group. And then we also have alternating in that time slot at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, we have Beth from, she's from our programs, and she leads a spirituality hour. So we're talking about tarot, we're talking about different rituals, moon stuff, all the fun things, crystals, chakras, you name it, Beth's on it. So we have a really cool group going on with that. And then on Thursdays, obviously we have the virtual campfire. So some of the things that you can look forward to as a member of Summit Circle, for our lowest tier is $11 per month, and you get to join us here on the virtual campfire as a VIP. And we also, have a monthly or the weekly family meetings that you get to come to, and those are Summit Circle gatherings. And then we also have a tier at $33 per month where you can join us for the virtual campfire VIPs. We also have the weekly meetings, and then on top of that, you get access to our Blaze Your Own Trail monthly workshops, which we offer. We are currently offering Blaze Your Own Trail to Self-Love as a 12-week intensive program. We're in the middle of that right now. Right now is week 6, and our group is having an awesome time learning how to feel feelings, setting intentions, setting some goals that they'd like to achieve before the end of the program. We offer that as a self-paced version where you can just have access to the materials. There's no live facilitation, but you have access to all the worksheets right away on demand whenever you're ready. And then we also offer this now as a monthly workshop. So our first monthly workshop for the Blaze Your Own Trail to Self-Love is on Sunday, February 21st, and we're meeting at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And excuse me, we will be going through the vision board exercise, which is week 2, module 2 of Blaze Your Own Trail. So one of the things I love most about this exercise is we have the opportunity to do vision boards, which, if you're familiar with vision boards, you're probably familiar with the version that is like big mansions, fancy cars, all the material type things that you might want in your life. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want those things, that's awesome. But we kind of put our Hiking My Feelings spin on it. And there's a poem by a woman named Linda Ellis called The Dash. And it is a great poem that talks about the time between the day you were born and the day you died, and the dash in between is where all this amazing stuff happens. So it's Live Your Dash is the name of the poem. And we do vision boards in light of living your dash. So like, what are the experiences you want to have? What's the impact you want to make on the world? Stuff like that. And my guy Zion's here, so I'll speed through the rest of this stuff. So at the $33 a month tier, you get the virtual campfire VIP, weekly family meetings, the monthly Blaze Your Own Trail to Self-Love workshops, and then we also offer workshops that are based on our theme of the month. So you can look forward to that. And then we also have an annual membership, $333 a year. So go to hikingmyfeelings.org/summit if you'd like to join. And I am going to stop rambling about the Summit Circle because my boy Zion's here. Hi, friend. How are you? I am so excited.
What's up? How you doing?
Good. Sure. How are things?
It's going. This week has been rough. I'm not gonna lie.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm not in the business of fronting these days or lying.
Good. So let's skip it. Tough. Let's get right down to it. So I'll do a quick intro. So Zion is you're currently the entirety of Zion I Crew, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right now,
conscious rap artist. Tons of great music. The song that you dropped last week, dude, heavy rotation here in the Hike in My Feelings space. Barry and I are obsessed. Super good. And Zion joined me on my birthday last year for the first virtual campfire series that we did. He joined us towards the end of last year during our initial Take a Hike Diabetes campaign for Diabetes Awareness Month to talk about the power of positive music and positive lyrics. And after that one, we were like, there's some like weird momentum building, like things are kind of wild coming out of 2020, 2021, new energy, new president, all kinds of new things. So let's compare notes. And so here we are to compare notes and to talk about our theme this month is self-care is community care. You said this week is hard. Let's jump straight into that. Like, how are you taking care of yourself, or are you not? Let's be real.
I'm trying my best. Like, and that's one of the things I'm tripping off of is with the self-care is like forgiving myself, giving myself a little space. You know what I'm saying? What's happened to me this week is that I had the court hearing in December, and so now every Sunday I have to drive 5 hours to pick up my boys. So every Sunday it's like I'm driving to LA. And I don't know what happened, but last Sunday I got home It was all good. I went to sleep, and then I woke up at like literally 3:33 in the morning, and I was like, why can't I go back to sleep? And my mind was like racing and going forward, and so I just couldn't sleep good that night. And then Monday, I got 3 boys, so usually if one of them wakes me up, I go right back to sleep. This week, they wake me up, and I'm up. Last night, literally, it was musical beds. It was like I went to sleep, then my oldest got in my bed, then my middle one got in my bed. Then I was like, okay. And then the oldest one got back in his bed. Then the little one came in and said he wants some juice. Then I got in their bed. And then the little one came back and it was just like all night long. So it's just every day has literally been like that. So I just haven't been resting well. And I don't know, man. It's something that's happened since, when my boy died last year in August. I never really had a problem with sleeping, but it's like a thing that's like emerged. And maybe it's because of anxiety. My mind is kind of like racing when I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like thinking of all these things that I have to do, which I haven't really experienced in my life before. But I saw a meme yesterday, and it was talking about how today is like the new moon, and there's like 6 planets in Aquarius, and there's all this like new energy going around. And like if you're feeling tired or anxious or have headaches, or it was like, hello. So I don't know. Maybe that's what's going on. I'm hoping tonight I can just like go to sleep early and get a good rest. I need that.
Yeah, well, I think I can relate to that feeling of like, not sleeping, and we don't have kids, so it's not musical bed, but it's like there's just so much going on in the world and life, pandemic, list all the things.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere, my friend got a tattoo of an arrow, and the signifying story behind it was like the arrow, like when it's being pulled back, like before it's released, feels crazy, right? Like it's so tense, and you feel like you're getting pulled backwards when you were previously making forward momentum. And then at some point it's just like pop, and then the arrow goes. And so when I feel that, like I try to like visualize that when I'm feeling what you're feeling, like what is about to launch. And I think in the case of this new moon, like new energy, all this new stuff, maybe mind racing, friend passing, maybe there's some big wonderful thing that's about to happen on the other side of this. And maybe right now you're just getting dragged back, and then something cool is going to launch from it. How's that feel? Good? Crazy?
Better.
Good.
Sure. I mean, I texted my my healer, and I basically sent her the meme that I told you about, and she was like, no, that's not it. She was like, literally, she gave me the thumbs down. I was like, but she was like, no, it's Mercury retrograde, and like, take your time. Don't rush into new things. Review things you need to finish up. And I was like, okay. And then she sent me some YouTube clip of some dude explaining like the Chinese New Year and all these new things happening. And a lot of what he was talking about was like, yo, it's time, like you said, to launch into new things. Like if you've been having feelings about doing X, Y, and Z that you haven't done yet, now's a good opportunity to maybe like start vibing off those things. So I'm working to take it, you know what I'm saying, for the best as usual. In the middle of the night last night, I was just like, dude, I was literally telling myself like, it's gonna be okay. It's like you're tripping off it right now, but it always works out. It always has. It's not any different. It's still life. You know what I mean? But I just think we get into these moments sometimes where I don't know, maybe we're being pushed through those uncomfortable places because we just need to, deal with whatever those issues are. And like a lot of times we don't because it's just so uncomfortable. And we don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to, especially in days like this where it always been uncomfortable for about a year straight now.
Yeah.
You don't want any more. But another thing I read the other day that was coming to mind is that we was talking about the ego and how, when we don't want to suffer, it's the ego, because the nature of this reality, an aspect of it is suffering. It's and to learn, to evolve and grow from it. And like to not expect to have to suffer and go through things is like you're playing yourself by thinking that. And I'm reminding myself of all these things as I'm feeling uncomfortable, not wanting it. And I'm like, okay, it's cool. And those little things, those little like tweaks along the way that help me to just kind of readjust and like, all right, it's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't pressure yourself so much. You're not perfect every moment. Yet we are, but we're not at the same time. So,
and I think "and we are" is the part that a lot of us miss. And I think that is the key to the kingdom. It's like, I have really been trying to step into that, and it feels, especially as a woman, it feels cocky to say that. Like, I am perfect, I am divine, I am created from whatever image, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
like,
why do you say
wow.
as a woman though?
Because well, that's a great question. In my world, I have been punished when I show up fully expressed. I have been diminished when I show up fully expressed. So that doesn't feel safe. I don't know if that's necessarily a woman, but as a woman, that's my lived experience. And I think everybody probably goes through that a little bit, but why? Yeah. What do you think? You go through that too? Are we the same?
Yes, we are the same. I think it maybe shows up a little differently for me. I think for me, it's like, societal. It's coming, you know what I mean? Like, I'm African American. It's like being constantly reminded, like, you're less than, you're not as good, you did this, you're hyper violent, you're hypersexual, you're this, you're that, you're not as smart as us, you did it. And then, like, as a kid, like, you take on some of that. And then at my age now, I look at it like, damn, you know what I mean? Like, I can see it now. I can differentiate the programming from the reality to an extent. I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but I can see much more than I could when I was 10 years old. But I've carried some of that baggage with me since I was young. And so I think these are some of the things that are getting processed out. You know what I mean? Like, in these times right now, it's just still like, damn, like literally a lot of things that come to me are like childhood memories lately. It's kind of weird. Like, why am I thinking about that? Damn, I haven't thought about that in 35 years, like 30, 40 years. I didn't even know I remembered that. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's how it shows up for me.
I like that. And I think that so I'm going to go around the block to get next door. But I got a story to get to a point, because I don't know how to get straight to a point. So my book and the work that we do at Hiking My Feelings is rooted in the stories that I share, where I talk about unpacking. Like, I believe that we all wear these invisible backpacks, and we call it baggage. Like, that's not new. I didn't invent this term, but like, what my discovery was as I started hiking and backpacking specifically was like, nature heals me. This is where I feel safe to process. This is where I can unload, revisit old traumas, old memories, and stuff like that. Because for me, deeply intense physical activity is what gets the issues out of my tissues. Like, that's what really brings it up to the surface for me, so I can process it. Yeah. So in my book, I talk about unpacking these trauma packs that we're wearing, these backpacks that are full of our trauma, and they're loaded up with like things you've internalized as your truth, things that coaches or mentors or family or like the people who have just like kind of blanket authority that you listen to and don't question as a child, those things that they say so often that you just like really hold it to be true. I unpack these things. And so my literal backpack when I was backpacking is really structured. Like, it has this really great back plate, and it keeps it away from my skin, so there's air that passes through it and you don't get sweaty. And it's got this hip belt that, like, every time I put it on, it feels like it's a hug. And I just really love this backpack. Wow. And it's heavy because it's so constructed and there's so much structure. So we recently had the opportunity to join up with Gossamer Gear, who makes ultralight backpacking equipment. This is stuff that's like top of the line. These are for people that are hiking, across the country, where every gram makes a difference. Wow. And so I've been doing this work to unpack my backpack metaphorically on the trail, processing trauma, and like it from the time that I realized that that's what I was doing in 2018, which is what Hiking My Feelings started as, was this realization that hiking helps me process these feelings instead of eating and drinking my feelings. Like, hiking was my new way to cope and process. When I started doing that in 2018, all the way until August of 2019, we had gone from Southern California all the way around California out to Colorado, through Utah, through Oregon, through Washington, and then we got to Montana, and I did this hike on the Highline Trail in Glacier National Park. And that was the first hike where I didn't feel deeply rooted trauma and memories and things that I had suppressed bubbling up to the surface. I just hiked and I had a blast, and I got done with it. And I was like, Barry, are you telling me people hike and have fun and like this stuff, and you don't have to do months of work after these big emotional experiences? Like, I can just go out and enjoy it. He's like, yeah. I was like, I see why people like this. Like, this is kind of cool. So it took me over a year to get to the point where I could just enjoy the outdoors in this way. So I have this backpack, and it's really structured, and it's over constructed, to be honest. And so now I have this ultralight backpack. We got him a couple of weeks ago. We took him out for a spin. I don't know. You haven't been to the Reggae Ranch yet. You have to come. We should go on this hike. But there's this trail that goes out from the Reggae Ranch out into the wilderness. And there's this area of rocks. And Barry and I have nicknamed it the launch pad, because that's where all of our good ideas come. So like, we go on these walks, we're walking and talking, we do these walking meetings, and then like clarity hits, or I write something really beautiful, or I just like, just feel at peace and at home in my body. So we're trying on these like lightweight backpacks. And at first I was like, it's kind of digging in my shoulders because it's not as constructed as the other one. The hip belt is like removable, and it's frankly, it's kind of flimsy compared to the other one where it's like molded to go around my body. And at first I was so uncomfortable, and I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this. And then I took the backpack off. We had our launch pad moment. I drank my mate. I sat on the top of the mountain, and then I came back and I put it on, and Barry's like, so what do you think about the backpack? And I was crying, and he was like, wow, what's happening? And I was like, Barry, like, I've been working so hard to unpack my metaphorical backpack that I think that I'm actually ready for lightweight gear, because if we're using the backpack as a metaphor, now I have a spine, like I grew one. And now I have boundaries, and now I'm strong in my power, in my truth. And I stand confidently in this body, on this meat suit, in this spinning rock in outer space. Like, I feel at home here, and I feel like I'm ready for this backpack that doesn't have as much structure, because I don't need as much structure. And the stuff that I'm carrying, like when you use ultralight equipment, you should be carrying ultralight gear. Like, you don't bring your dad's camp stove and your 30-pound sleeping bag and put it in a lightweight backpack, because they just can't carry that much weight. And I was like, but I'm not carrying as much weight either, because I've been releasing it and I've been working through it. And so I don't know what the point of the story was, other than I'm really like excited about lightweight equipment. But when you were talking about like the backpack and the baggage that you wear, and you've had it since you were a kid, like, what are some of the areas, because like this month we're talking about how self-care is community care. Like, what are some of the things, I know you talk about, I'm going to butcher it. Is it Qigong that you do? Yeah. Qigong. What are some of the things that you do for self-care, especially when you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm so weighed down by all these stories and everything that everybody tells me that I am?
I mean, my basic go-tos are, prayer and meditation. It's fun. Meditation is kind of funny because, I go through these spurts in my life where it's like my morning coffee. I don't drink coffee, but like that for people, like I do it. I have to do it. If I don't feel right the whole day. And then I go through these spurts where it's like, oh, I don't need it. And then like, I don't need it. And then I get off and I'm like going and going. And then like, I look up and it's been like a couple months and I'm like in a fucked up place. You know what I'm saying? And then I start meditating again. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that anymore. I know that it's something that's more of a, it's more of a sustaining guide. You like, if you get away from your guide, you get lost. And then you have to find out where you were just to get back on path. Like at this point in my life, I'm not necessarily trying to get lost like that in my journey forward. So it's something that I need to do on a regular basis, pretty much. And when I don't, I feel it. Qigong, of course, is like the movement with the breathing, structural alignment. That's meditation, standing up pretty much in movement. But it kind of releases my body. I just feel more grounded to deal with these things in my meditation even, or just to kind of take on what's going on in the world or in myself or in my family and my loved ones. I'm a little more stable when I'm doing my Qigong. Another thing I do is real basic that I just kind of picked up over the last year or two. Is like taking a salt bath, which is it cleans the aura off. It kind of like gets rid of I don't know, dirt hanging on to your psychic whatever, or your mental body, or however you want to look at it. I don't want to get too when I'm talking about this stuff, but it really seems to calm me down. I've had some moments where, I don't know, man, like something happened in December where I didn't see my kids for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It was bad. I'm not gonna go into all the details of it, but it was just like my mom was coming into Oakland, but wouldn't let me see the kids. And then like, it was just all crazy. It was all based on, I wasn't getting the court orders from the lawyer. So I didn't see and I was just feeling it. I was just so, I was just, everything was, I remember just getting in my car, driving to get some flowers for this bath my friend told me to do. He's like, dude, you need to do this love bath. You need to do this thing. And I was like putting it off. And then I was like at such a broken point that I was like, that's the only thing I can do right now. Like I've done everything else. And I was just sitting in my car driving to the flower place. All of them are closed because it's the shelter in place. You know what I'm saying? So I had to find one like 15 minutes from my house, not too far. But I'm just sitting in my car crying the whole time driving, like, damn, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't ever remember feeling like this in life, like, where I'm just assed out. You know what I'm saying? Maybe when I was a kid and a girl broke up with me or something, I was like, oh, but it's a different level where you're a full grown ass adult. And like, you know what I'm saying? I kind of think I have my life figured out, but just being devastated. And the bath really, I don't know, something about coming into the water with intentionality, and addressing like the elements of the universe and asking for protection and guidance, and like being really intentful about it, not thinking it's a joke, but like, I need this right now. Like, I really need help, please. And then getting out and feeling like not great, but better, to where like, all right, it's manageable. And that little bit was enough to like, okay, there's hope. Cause I was like, dude, I'm spiraling down. Where am I going? Like where I don't know this feeling. Usually I'm able to like, you know, the superhero, they fall off the thing and they go like Batman, they'll throw something and latch onto the building.
Yeah.
And he doesn't fall all the way. I'm usually able to do that, but this time I didn't feel like I was throwing stuff and it wasn't catching. So that helped. So those are basically the things I do. I try to spend time with good people. I think conversations like this, where we're being vulnerable and real, help a lot, tremendously. Not trying to act like I got my shit, like I'm so tight and everything is right for me. And like I told my friends, man, if you don't see me on social media, it's generally because I'm going through it. And I don't get on social media trying to say every day is the best day. I'm in Dubai, I'm in Egypt, I'm in Thailand. I don't do that either. But I also don't try to like portray an image when I'm just not feeling it. And maybe, you know, I'm sure I'd probably be a lot more popular if I was able to do that.
Ew, but at what expense?
Exactly.
Gross. Yeah, like
But
not
that's
worth
what I
it.
mean.
Yeah.
Because you have to get up in front of the world and still have that face no matter what. And you know, that's kind of a superpower to me. People who are able to do that, I have a high degree of respect for them. Like, it's not easy to put on a face when you feel like shit deep down. And so, yeah, so these are the things I do. They help me. But I think meditation and breathing are the things I immediately go to calm my nervous system down and just like to take a pause. In fact, I know I'm like gushing right now, but my Sifu told me something. He was like, you know, when you come in for a session to heal, it relates to me because I'm a musician. He was like, all we're doing is changing the tempo. And I was like, what do you mean?
I
He's
like that.
We just want you to slow down. You're healing yourself. I'm not doing anything. He's like, I'm just practicing Qigong. You're in my way. I just need you to slow down and change the tempo. That's my job, is to change the tempo for you. So when you come in, I talk light and low. I encourage you. You lay down, you rest. I put needles in, massage, whatever needs to happen, cups, all that stuff. But he's like, I'm just changing the tempo. And telling me that, I was like, okay, I get that. Because it's not necessarily all the things happening. It's the fact that you're settling down with yourself, just you and yourself, and giving yourself attention, however that may happen. You know, some people you hike, some people may golf, some people meditate, some people may garden, some people may go ride a bike. We all do it in different ways, but I just think, you know, that's really the key.
And I think an important part of that is like acknowledging that that's what that time is for, because I feel like, and this is just my experience, and maybe you can relate, it's like until I came to the realization that this is what hiking gives me, I was like, oh, I like being outside. That's pretty neat. Like there wasn't like, it took a literal like universal 2x4 to the face with this idea of hiking my feelings for me to like find the words and the language to articulate what this space is for me when I'm outdoors, when I'm walking. Because for me, hiking is a moving meditation. It's also a real big cry fest a lot of the time. Not so much these days, but I had a good couple big cries a couple of weeks ago. And it's like, I think if I could wave a magic wand just over people, because like you said, like we all have things that we do, but I don't know that we are all conscious of why we're doing them and why they're beneficial. You know what I mean?
True. Well, I think when you say you have a cry fest, like two things come up for me. Like one is that it's so cool to hear you say that, because as a man, it's like when you say that, fools are like, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, really? Are you talking to, you know what I'm saying? I feel like there's more space for women to express that.
That is true.
But I do walk with that too. Like lately, I've been like, yo, I'm not gonna front. Like, I just talk about it when I'm crying. I cry often, you know what I'm saying? I cry a lot when I meditate, you know what I'm saying? At a certain point in my meditation, it's interesting. It's
like when you're all the way in it, is that?
It's like when I'm all the way in it, but it's like when I think about my ancestors, I get really like full of emotion. It changes, because when I'm just like breathing and like kind of like watching my thoughts, it's something totally different. I think I shift between like meditation and then I like pray towards the end. So when I start praying, it's kind of like more emotional. I don't know what the other thing that came up was.
Hiking, being conscious of why we do these things.
The consciousness, like the intention. Because I think when you sit and you say, like, let's say eating, you say, all right, I'm going to eat food to nourish my spirit and my body to be healthy and strong. And so I can, and instead of saying, damn, that pizza look good as a motherfucker, I want 10 pieces. Fuck it, I don't care. It's a different intention. It's a different intention going in. I think that makes all the difference. It's the intention.
Well, 100%, especially with food, because like I have been really mindful about that lately, especially since I was diagnosed with diabetes in 2017. But even like as of like a couple days ago, like Barry and we have been cranking out some like baller food out of the van. Like you don't even know what's possible. This van is old enough to buy beer. We're on a 2-burner cook stove and we got like a nonstick pan and a sauce pot. And we are like gourmet Japanese curry stir fries. Like it is money.
That's dope.
And the other day I made food and he was watching like a recap of some of the stuff that's going on with like the impeachment trial. And so I was eating and then I was like, I'm going to step outside the van because like I don't want to listen to this while I eat, because like I'm always intentional about the food. And honestly, since I started looking at food as a way to nourish my body, I don't want to say it doesn't matter what I eat, but now that I'm mindful about it, like last night we had pizza and I was like, this is something we don't get to make in the van because we don't have an oven. Like the amount of times that I have pizza has gone down dramatically since we started living in a van. But we were in town, we were running errands. Barry's birthday was on Monday. And I was like, hey, you want to go to Mr. Moto? Like that's our favorite pizza joint from when we were house people. And we had like a firm roof over our head. And I was like, we sat down, buffalo chicken pizza. And I was just like, this is the most beautiful creation. And I felt like holy to eat it. But like, because there was that intention, I wasn't like, I'm hammered, give me pizza, I got to soak up the booze. Like it was an experience and a moment. And I think that that's a really important piece of the intention, especially when it comes to food, is like, yes, of course, there are foods that nourish our bodies way more positively than ones that don't. But in the absence of, when I think about diabetes management and I think about all the systemic factors that impact the different communities that are more impacted by diabetes. Like marginalized communities have a higher prevalence of diabetes. That's just a fact because they don't have access to fresh, healthy foods. They're in food deserts, food swamps. Like even if you can't get something good, to be able to say, this is what I've got, this is what I have access to, and I trust that this is for my highest good and for my nourishment, like that can change, I believe, like the like structure of what you're putting in your body. Like I don't drink very often, but Kaleo's wife, Kaleo from Pepper, his wife Melanie, gave us a bottle of glug, which is like a Swedish holiday tradition. And when we went to go pick it up, I went to go pick up she also makes wonderful skincare products. So I went to go pick those up and she's like, also, here's an offering. And I was like, I don't drink very much anymore. But the way she described it, she's like, we use the highest end spirits. And this is a family tradition that goes back centuries. Like, we've been doing this for generations, and we take the palm sugar and we slowly melt it and we stir it with love and intention. I was like, I'm literally drinking love in a jar. Like, is booze the best thing for you to drink versus like water or tea or juice or whatever? No, but when you're rooted in the intention of it, it really changes the dynamic of what you're doing. It
changes everything. I mean, one thing you said, like the peach was before you and you're like, I feel holy eating it. That's how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like in my yoga teachings way back in the day, I remember I was in college, I was at Morehouse, and I was having these digestion, gastrointestinal things. Like it was a serious thing. Like one of my boys worked at this raw foods restaurant, and he bought this stuff. They called it Kush. It was basically like, I think it was like cracked wheat, but it wasn't cooked. It was soaked in like oil. It tasted really good. But like we were broke college students, and he worked there, and he bought this, like my boy who passed away, Dre, he bought this like 5-pound thing of like cracked wheat. You know what I'm saying? And he'd bring it every night. And I was like, oh yeah, I haven't eaten all day. I'm about to grub.
Yeah.
So I eat hell of it. I'm hella full. I go to sleep. I wake up. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? Basically, my stomach, I don't know what happened. It turned green inside because I was vomiting green stuff for like a week and a half. Oh my stomach didn't get right for like between 3 months. It was a shift. And then 6 months later, there was another shift where it almost felt normal. But it was like that experience stuck with me. So I was going through that. And another one of my brothers was like, yo, man, go see this, counselor at Morehouse. So I go sit down with him. I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, what's going on? And I tell him what my experience. And he's like, when we eat, we say grace or we pray because we want to create that sacred energy around what we're doing and bring the mind to a place where it's like, this is a temple and you're taking care of your temple right now. This is not, you know what I'm saying? There's 50 burgers. I'm going to see how fast I can eat it. This is like, it's part of your practice. It's just like meditation. It's just like prayer. It's just like Qigong. It's just like hiking. It's just another aspect of life. And he was just like, that's why you're praying over it. And like, when he told me that, it really changed something about the way I view, not that all my problems went away, but I have it with me. Like that hit me. It resonated with me because I knew in that moment, like, damn, I didn't do that when I ate that food. I was just like, oh, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten all day. I have no money. I'm going to eat 3 pounds of this stuff. And it just literally sat in my stomach. But I think the feeling of the cultivation of the idea of these are holy moments and these are sacred moments that we're spending with ourselves or with food or with animals or with friends or with nature.
I think that's what the flower bath too. Yeah. Like that's getting into your body, taking a pause, going to your healer, getting the pins, getting the cups, like all of that is just like really dropping in and removing all of this extra stuff out here. Cause there's a lot of stuff competing for our attention.
So much. I mean, especially these days, it just feels like there's so much. And it seems like they're very aware of it and they know what they're doing because it's like, okay, nobody was talking about COVID-19 during the election. And as soon as Biden won, numbers of COVID-19 have spiked. And like the next day. And then it's been running ever since. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's definitely some aspect of, I don't know, governance or authority or media. I don't know, however you want to look at it. That is, it's like, I look at it like a mixtape. Like they're cutting in a new song. They always got to and they got to beat you to the punch. They don't want you to create a new song. They want you to follow their lead.
Song. Yeah.
So and so it's like this, and people are very vulnerable right now. It's a tough time out here. So it's easy to get rocked by just information. People are running out and like, I need a vaccine right now. No, going crazy because it is information. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even going to talk about that. I'm not trying to go in that direction. Sorry. But I'm just saying it puts you in a place where, like, early in the pandemic, I was in a place where I was tripping off money. I was like, I have no shows. What am I going to do? And somebody hit me on Facebook. This is embarrassing. So somebody hit me on Instagram. They DM me and they were like, hey, we want to run ads on your Facebook. We'll pay you this much money. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, I'm doing the math on the calculator. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going into a new tax bracket. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I basically walk them into my Facebook, and I'm just like, intuitionally, I'm like, this don't feel right. But I'm in such a weakened state. Like I don't have no foundation right now. My balance is off, no grounding, and I'm feeling it. But I'm still like, but there's a chance that it might work. And I let these people into they hack my whole Facebook page. Like everything's gone.
No.
I swear to God. And the crazy thing about it is the funniest part of it that made me not feel so bad and exposed, and probably why I could talk about it, because I was really feeling embarrassed by this. I talked to my homie and he was like, bro, the same people got me. And I was like, cool.
All right, cool. Fine.
He was another artist. They got him the same exact way. But it's like when you're in that position, it's like the sharks come out, they smell blood. And now they're like, you know what I mean? They're searching around for an opportunity. I feel like all these practices, like, to shield that off and just like, all right, me, my family, my loved ones here in this moment, this is important, rather than, because that thing will drag you out, man. It'll drag you out eternally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you won't be yourself anymore. So yeah.
Can we get weird?
Let's do it.
Okay. So have you seen Superhuman on Amazon?
No.
So, okay.
It's not Stan Lee, is it?
No. So this is a documentary about consciousness. And so it starts with like testimonials from people that are like, yeah, like, I'm not saying we live in like somebody's video game, but like it does feel like a simulation, glitch in the matrix, that kind of thing. And so they're talking about, they go and they have like the lady that's kind of leading it goes and talks to all these different people, and they're talking about like Reiki, and they're talking about like energy healing, and they're talking about just like higher consciousness. So they have this lady sit with this guy, and she's in this room, and this other woman, like the leader of the show, goes out, and she's just kind of like walking around this town. They've never been through this town. They've never driven through it. And she's like, okay, I want you to take your higher consciousness and follow me out and describe what you see. So this woman's in this room with this dude, like taking notes. And she's like, so the lady that's out in the town, like actually seeing and experiencing things, she like walks by this, like, it's like a Christmas tree, but made out of strands of lights. And so the lady's like, I see decorative lights. It looks like a pointy thing, like a tree, whatever. So then the lady goes and she holds on to these like metal bars. And she's like, I feel like it's like rough, but like firm. And it's like, kind of like a fence. And so she's like describing what this other woman is touching, and like she's never been there. This could all be totally hokey, but on the off chance that it's not, I was just like, okay, that's wild, I want to try it. And then they go and they have these different schools. So there's one in Russia, and there's one, I think it's in Ogden, Utah, or is it Ogden, Utah? Or yeah, I don't know, but it's like Vibra Vision is what they call it. So they have these kids, and they're doing this work with these children. So they have on these like completely blinding masks, and there's somebody behind the kid with this mask on, and they're holding up these colored cards. And so the kids are just going red, blue, green, yellow, purple, pink, red, black, whatever. Like, and they can see it, but they're blindfolded, and the people are behind them, because they're like training them to bring their consciousness like out of their body and then up above and just kind of like observe from out here. Do you think that shit's real? And also,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, for sure. So then how, if all of this stuff if the mixtape is being made to take our attention away, then what does that say about our shared collective experience as humans on this planet? Because
It's being
when
managed.
I am, huh?
It's being managed.
Okay, let's go there.
And fed on as well.
Yeah.
It's a source of energy for whoever. I don't know who. I don't know what they're called. I don't
So
even
how
like.
did we learn that we are different? Because you and I looking on this Zoom screen on planet Earth, whatever we're doing, we are polar opposites. I'm a white lady with curly blonde hair. You are a black man with dreads. Like, how are we separate? But because we're not. Like, I do not. When I feel like that's one of the reasons why I love having you on this show, because every time that we talk, I'm like, I'm talking to my person. Like, this is a different expression of Sydney Williams. Like,
same way.
That's why that's the only reason I can explain the depth of the connection I share with my husband. We have been together for lifetimes. We managed to find each other in this one. Like, what is that? And how is that possible? And why are we having this experience where like you and I should be at odds with each other according to whatever's out here? Like how did we arrive at this place when the world wants us to not be at this place?
I don't know why. I just think that, like you said, you hook up with your people. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. You know, I have a lot to say on this, but it brings to mind, I don't know if I told you this story. It brings to mind, I was in Jamaica in 1996, right after I graduated college. I went with this dude I barely knew. My good friend was in the middle between this other dude and me, and he pulled out last minute, and I was like, I gotta go to Jamaica. Anyway, so I end up going with this cat I barely know. I'm traipsing around like near the grill, whatever. I end up going to see this healer out there, this old black dude. He reads my pulse and he just reads my pulse and he starts shaking his head. He's just like, and I'm like, I'm offended. I'm like, what? Like, I'm smoking weed, I'm meditating, I'm working out. I'm like, I got my shit. He's like, you're just like most African Americans. And I'm just like, huh? And he's like, you'll give $1 to a black man who wants to stab you in the back and pull your hand back away from a white man that wants to show you love. And I was like, whoa. Cause it hit, it somewhere like landed, it went, and I was like, oh shit. Like, and that's all he said. That's all he said for the reading. I had driven out my bike.
That's it. That's it.
Literally, we rode like 45 minutes to get to this guy on bikes. And like, he had come highly recommended. That's all he said to me. And I was like, I don't know. I had to look at myself like, man, what, like I'm telling you these things that never left me. You know what I'm saying? They stuck in my consciousness somewhere, like as a symbol, like boom, somebody said mic drop, for real. It was like, they just landed on me. And so from that point, I had to like look at the way I perceive energy and beingness. And, you know, when you said we're not supposed to get along, you described aesthetics, blonde hair, white skin,
Right.
dreadlocks, brown. Like, you didn't describe anything about my heart or who I am or how you are, or if you're compassionate or loving. You see what I'm saying? I think these are the things that, for me, bind my tribe together. It's a conscious desire to want and to know more about this whatever you call it, simulation, experiment, journey, life, however you choose to look at it. We're all here. I want to know more. Like, why? I want to know the reason I'm here, and I want to fulfill the reason I'm here because I can feel it on a deep level. And some of the things you were discussing about, you know, the kids with the mask on and the colors and distant seeing, people look, I've experienced all of that. You know what I'm saying? The military has been doing these things since like the 50s and 60s. Like, the military, they use these things. You know what I'm saying? So generally speaking, the internet started with the military, and now it's consumer based. Just to have an inkling of, they try to get it first and then use it to control the situation. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like these are, you know, in yoga, they're called cities, like powers that come along the way to spiritual progress. I feel like collectively we're at a point now where the energy is rising up. Somehow, like, it's uncomfortable. And that's one thing that kind of reassures me that it's rising up, because any spiritual evolution I've gone through in my years on earth, it hasn't been traipsing through, you know, the rainbows and catching butterflies. Oh my God, it's so fun and for me, it's never been like that. It's been traumatic. It's been like shaking, and I have to confront myself, and like it's uncomfortable. And then I come out the other side with all this like experience and understanding, like, all right, these things are for me, these things aren't. It's up to me. I still have a choice. I could be the wackest person I've ever been right now if I choose to be. You know what I'm saying? Or I can use all these things that I've learned along the way to be the best dad to my kids that I could possibly be, and the best person in this moment. I'm still going to make mistakes, but it's like I bring all of that with me. And I think we're all going through that on some level. And I just feel like, man, there's a control frequency on earth. You know, I just feel like one of my friends said to me that he said, what did he say? We've forgotten and buried more civilizations on this planet than we could ever even like discuss. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, they say underneath where's the Pope live in Rome? Where's that called? The Vatican?
The Vatican, yeah.
They say there's miles and miles and miles of secret things from civilizations that they don't want the world to see. But why are they keeping it? I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't just destroy it. So I don't know if that's true or not. But it makes sense according to how I look at this world. Because as a little Black boy, just like on a like a whole nother note, talking about control frequency, I remember when I moved from Cincinnati, Ohio, I moved to Rhode Island in like the late 70s, early 80s. I was going from second grade to third grade. And I remember I got to Rhode Island, and they were like, oh, he needs to repeat second grade again. Control frequency. My mom was like, why? We don't recognize that school district, And my mom was like, resistant. She was like, well, test him then. Test him and see what happens. You can do whatever you want after you test him. So they test me. I tested super high. So they're like, whoa. So now I'm in a class with the two other smartest kids in the class, like third grade or whatever, these two white dudes. And we're learning all this stuff and like just like super. And then when we go put us in with the other class, it's hella easy. But I remember that because it was the control frequency. Little Black kid, you can't be smart. Put him here. Put him on Ritalin. Put him on lithium. Set him over there. He's bound to be a criminal. He's bound to do something wrong. If he wants to play basketball, that's okay. If he wants to play football, that's fine.
Right.
But in terms of, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what we're seeing. Like, and I'm reading a book, it's called The African Unconscious right now. And it's interesting because right now he's talking about Jews in the world. And he's talking about historically the persecution that they've experienced way before Nazi Germany. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like over time, like, you know, like almost like millennium, you know what I'm saying? Like over and over and over and over throughout Europe, Spain, you know what I'm saying? Different places all over the place, United States. And just how, and like, I'm starting to see that like a lot of what we're seeing is very cyclical. So maybe if there are overlords on the planet Earth, if you want to get real strange, they've been here for a long time. They know what they're doing. I feel like I read another book. If you want to keep writing books down, this is a weird one. This one's really strange though. It's called Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Marciniak, I believe. She talks about how there's basically overlords here who they feed on negative emotional energy. So they feed on fear. They feed on like depression, war, low vibration sexuality, anger, just they makes them stronger. And there's like these archetypes of things. So these are all ideas that pass through my head. And that have come across my awareness. I don't necessarily study them or ascribe to them. But when you say get weird, these are things that I think, I mean, why are we not being encouraged to discover ourselves on a deep spiritual level? Why isn't TV talking about that? Why do they want us to buy a new Mercedes, but they don't want us to deep breathe in the morning? Why do they tell us to go get a vaccine, but they don't tell us to do these breathing exercises and take vitamin C and vitamin D and ginger, which are basic things to boost your immunity, very basic level. They don't tell you to do that, but they want you to go pay them money to do other things. So I just think, like, you know, when I look at how this society is set up, it's not set up for you to prosper on a spiritual level. It's set up for capitalism. It's
And
set
to
up to earn
consume
money.
in
Yeah.
cyclical, horrible, terrible ways. That's not good for the planet or our spirits. Yeah.
I mean, so I think there's something to that. You know what I mean? When you look at psychic abilities, and because I've experienced it before, bro. Like I've literally, like, in the past 2-3 years, like, it's been like that for me. Like I told you, I think last time we talked a lot about that stuff, and like, to hear something from somebody over here that doesn't know, and then somebody else to be like, yeah, I don't know, and then a third person to be like, well, both of them are right. But then, like, to give me information where I'm like, dude, how do you know that? And then to go out and do something, I can't give too many details because it feels weird, but to go out and do something for my boy who passed on, and then there's this weird energy popping up, and my boy who's filming and helping me, who's not into any of this, being like, yo, what's going on? What's happening? I'm like, I told you, blood. Like, the energy, there's some energy going on right now. I felt and experienced a lot of this stuff. It can be uncomfortable. And that's why I'm saying, like, the meditation, the breathing, the being grounded is so important, because, like, once you peel off the layers, and I'm not saying this as an expert, so don't follow this lead. I'm just saying what I've seen. But once I think you start peeling back the layers of reality, there's so much more that it's overwhelming. You can feel like a lot of people feel like they're crazy. And a lot of people are considered now crazy if they haven't dealt with it the right way, or maybe cleared out blockages, or cleared out or dealt with some of the shadow that we're talking about. When you get into that energy starts moving through you, if there's blockages in your body, according to yoga teachings, it'll get stuck in a certain chakra, and it'll start to deviate and go in a negative direction if you haven't cleared it out properly. So, like, it's not something to just jump in like, I'm spiritual today, I'm gonna go through this, and I'm gonna have these rituals, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna talk to, you know, it reminds me of, like, these movies where it's like the Ouija board, and you're doing all this stuff, and you're asking these entities to howl at you. But what have you done to protect yourself? Or what have you done to, like, know how to interact and protect your energy and your space once you start interacting? So there's a lot to it. And I just think that, I don't know, I believe that there's a lot of people on earth who know things and they don't want to share with other people.
Yeah. Well, if you had a magic wand when it comes to taking care of ourselves and our communities and this consciousness and all of the things that we've kind of discussed, like, what would you hope for people? Like, what would you do with your magic wand? What kind of awareness would you give folks?
I think right now what's coming to mind is what you just spoke about, which is recognizing self and other, you know, because I believe that breeds compassion immediately. When before I had kids, I always liked kids regardless. But when I had my first child, I noticed that when I'd be out and I'd see a kid crying, I'd be like, is he okay? What's going on? Is she all right? Where's the mom? Where's the dad? Okay, cool. All right, cool. Like, I just naturally, something switched inside of me where I feel like my heart got a little bit bigger around children, and possibly just humanity in general. But I feel like something expanded within me where it's like my awareness of others in a similar situation, because it just reminded me of my child. So I was like, that child reminds me of my child, so I care. You know what I mean? That's what I would want for the world, is like just to be like less about the superficial appearance and more about, well, you bleed red, your heart pumps, brain, we're the same. Can we work together? Like, some of that would be amazing to see on planet Earth, especially in these times. Like, I truly believe that collective spirit rising. I'm not sure what it's going to look like, but I feel like there's something different rising up out of this, because as you see, like, the technical digital space expanding rapidly, I feel like there's naturally going to be a response of, like, the human space or like, you know, connection to who we are is going to have to deepen, or else it's going to get dragged off along with that.
Yeah,
you know
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when we share, and I think at the root of it for me is like when we're brave enough to share the stories of the things we've experienced. And I really appreciate you like specifically calling out, be like, hey, Sydney, the parts that you called out were aesthetics. Like that's important to say these things. So like we can recognize just how ingrained it is to think in this way, even as somebody, and I consider myself to be pretty freaking conscious and pretty freaking intentional. Like those are still the words I use to describe, and I was illustrating a point, but also like calling that out and sharing these things that we've been through and the experiences that we've had, because like I say this all the time, but like the worst day of my life and the worst day of your life may be very, very different, but we're both still here to talk about it, and we can find common ground in that place. And it sucks that like the hard stuff and trauma is a deep connection point, but like the stuff we've been trying to connect over ain't working either. Hi, little man.
Hold on. About 30 minutes. Go. Can you close the door, please? Thanks, buddy. Now you see why I don't sleep.
Real life. I love it.
I'm sorry. I missed like the last few sentences though.
No, but I was just saying, like, I think it sucks that the stuff that's hard is where we can find deep connection with each other. But like you were saying, like that's where we can find just an immediate connection point, is like, because the stuff that we've tried to connect over, like, I like the Dodgers. Do you like the Dodgers? Like that's not connecting.
Well, that's like,
really,
you know, that's like tribalism, you know, that's like a certain level of connection. It's like, we like green. We like blue. Me too. We're going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what we're talking about is a deeper level of, I don't know, like expansion. I was looking at something and I don't know much about this, but it was talking about how I think engineer or scientist of some sort, maybe a philosopher, but he was talking about types of civilizations, type 1, 2, and 3. And how, like, you know, each level you basically master the environment and you're interacting. And the guy was basically saying, yeah, we're almost at level 1 right now. And he's like, we're growing to be the point at level civilization type 1. So it's changing. And you can feel it. I mean, just the internet and technology alone, you can feel it, dude. Like globally, like it's just this. I can't go too crazy with it because my mind's supposed to erase and I haven't slept. But it's just like there's so much happening. I think there's definitely going to be some collective spaces where it's like people are going to have to shed. Like we're going to have to get into places where, you know, like I've been to a sweat lodge before where it's like a bunch of people I only knew one person there. And at some point in there, it felt like we were all brothers because we were all suffering the same. Everybody was calling out to their ancestors. It was brutally hot. The dude who was running the sweat lodge came out with a boil on his nose because it was so hot in there. It was crazy. It was, I don't know if it was dangerous or not, but when I came out, I was so humbled. And I remember an experience in there, which is, you know, I think a metaphor of what we're talking about when like this collective shedding. I remember when they closed the door. If you ever been in a sweat lodge, there's these hot rocks in the middle, at least the one I went to. There's these hot rocks in the middle, the center of this like dome shaped thing, like, I don't know, construction, whatever. They close the door, the level jumps up immediately. Like the level of heat, like you get in there with the door open, it's like, oh, it's pretty hot. Then they close it, you're like, all right, it's hot. It's like a sauna. Then he pulls out the water and puts it on the rocks. When the steam hits the rocks, it goes up, it hits the top of the dome. And when it comes down, it jumps up like, I don't know how many degrees, but you're like, wow, what the? You're like, yo, am I supposed to be in here? You know what I'm saying? As when they first did it, the first steam hit, I started hyperventilating immediately. I was like, I like couldn't breathe. Dude next to me, I didn't know him from Adam. He put his hand on my back. He's like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And like him doing that helped me. It like calmed me down. I kind of got close to the earth. It was cooler down near the earth. So I like basically stayed there the whole time. But it helped me. Then further along, I think we did like, I don't know, 4 or 5 rounds of this, opening the thing, closing it, and it got hotter every time. By like the 4th round, everybody was like yelling and crying, and it was nuts. But the dude next to me who had helped me, he was like, "Ah, get off me, let me out!" Like he started spazzing out, and like, me down near the ground, breathing with his nice cool. I put my hand on his back, and I was like, "Calm down, breathe." I did the same thing for him that he had done for me, just because like I was very grateful. You know what I'm saying? I think those are the types of things and experiences either we're gonna go through, or we are gonna have to learn to create those for ourselves, to learn that the depth of humanity courses through all of us the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We all feel all of it. You see what I'm saying? Like all of us. So yeah.
Oh, man, hello, mic drop. Quote that.
No.
So for anybody that's on joining us here on Zoom, if you have questions, go ahead and pop on your camera. If you don't, then pop on your camera and we'll start wrapping up and do a group gratitude circle. So talk to me while people get their cameras on. Talk to me about the intention behind the song you just released, because I'm obsessed with it. Like let's bring it back to music. Let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about Two Eyes, because I love it.
It's an interesting story because I met that guy. The producer's name is Nathan Fields on Instagram. I don't even know how I met him. I think he sent me a DM around, and it was the depths of the pandemic, like when it was real weird still, maybe like June or July last year. And I was tripping. I didn't know what was go left from right. I was like anxious, paranoid, all kind of, and like he sent me a message and he's like, "Yo, I got beats, check me out." And I was like, whatever. And then one day I just was like, all right, I'm gonna check his beats. And I listened to his beats and I was like, damn, this shit is dope. I was like, who is this cat? And it's been such a blessing. Like just meeting him and having an opportunity at that moment was like, I don't know. It was just something that, the universe dropped for me. Like, here, don't give up, here, because I needed it. And when I heard the song, I was like, immediately, I liked that beat. I picked like 4 other ones. But I just wrote that, like, I have a thing when, like, the going gets rough. I have a thing where I'm just like, I'm going to be so militant with being positive, because I feel like that's the only response I can really have, and get through it for me. Like some people can like, go smoke weed and do whatever they do, carry guns and still be fine. I'm not that person, you know what I'm saying? Like I need to like really like it can be going crazy, crazy, crazy. But if I can tap in, it just gives me like enough space to be like, all right, it's gonna be cool. And that's what that song is for me. Like it was written in the depths of all the crazy shit going on right after George Floyd, I believe. And I'm talking about the,
Oh, wait, is that the beat that you were talking about because your thing was on June 3rd? Were you working on that song then, or was that the one with Indubious?
I think that was Indubious. This is after that. This is a little bit after that.
Okay.
But the lyrics are Beta Masadana, which is like your spiritual practice, burning off my karma. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm talking about like I'm working through it. I have my eyes still on the prize. I'm still in that direction. It's hard, but I'm working through it and I'm making improvement. I'm going. That's all the song for me is talking about, is like, thinking about my Qigong practice and how like all these different things have been coming to me to support my growth and my path and my healing. That's all I'm talking about in the song. And I'm glad people like it because it's done in a kind of like a aggressive kind of way. But it has this like, I think the intention behind it is like, let's do better. We're still alive. We're still living. Let's have fun. We know what we need to do. Let's keep pushing forward. Fuck everything else. Fuck the negative. Fuck what they're telling you. Do what you know you need to do for you. That's the attitude. So I'm glad people are vibing to it. I was really excited for people to hear it. I'm super glad I met the producer. He's so easy to work with and so mellow. I mean, he's on some Buddhist meditation vibe. I didn't know that. But as I work with him, he's like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I know this other artist, he teaches meditation. You want to get him on it? I'm like, yeah. And I didn't know the other dude on the song, Born I never met him before. I never heard his music before. he dropped the verse and I was like, it's all perfect. It's like, you know what I'm saying? I just kind of had trust and I needed to in that moment. And so I'm super thankful to have made that connection. And I have a bunch of music with him coming out soon. So
Yes, more where that came from. I love it. Mary or Michelle, do either of you have questions for Zion, or do you want to jump into gratitude?
I just wanted to ask, and we can, I just love every time Sydney has you on. I could listen
Thank
to you
you.
guys chat for hours.
So
Just if you could speak a little bit to just all these practices that you have and the tools that you use and how they come into play with your role as a father, like, you know, with your kids, or when you're feeling funky and you need to tap into these things. Are you talking with your kids about how you're feeling or what you're doing, or do you kind of reserve that for when you're, you know, if you ever get alone time? I don't know, but I don't know. I'm just curious what that looks like in as a father.
that's a great question. I think I definitely talk with him about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think these practices empower me to be willing to share my feelings with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they also empower me to, like, if I go overboard, like I said, I haven't been, literally, this is my example. I haven't been sleeping this week, so I know I'm edgy.
Yeah.
And like I yelled at my oldest son last night and I felt really bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back in his room and I was like, I didn't mean to do that. Like, I haven't slept. I'm sorry. This is why I'm upset. But I love you. And I don't want to interact with you in that way. I don't want to express myself. And he's like, okay. You know what I mean? I feel like these things ground me so I can deal with my feelings and express them in an honest way, good or bad. But it's much easier for me to say sorry to them because I'm older than them, but I constantly remind them, like, guys, I'm a human. I need to sleep. I get my feelings hurt. You know what I mean? I have bad days. I get angry just like you guys. So I'm older than you. I'm your dad, but like, we have a lot of the same vibes. Because my youngest son, he'll say like, when are we going to mom's house? Because we're separated. When are we going to mom's? I want to play Miles Morales there. And I just like, that hurts my feelings when you say that over and over, right? I was like, I'm more important than Miles Morales, man. Like Spider-Man, Black Spider-Man is not more important than your dad. You see what I'm saying? Another thing, yesterday, the past 2 days, actually, I've been trying to get them to meditate with me, which is nearly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I got a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 10-year-old. The 10-year-old can hold it down. The 6-year-old and the 4-year-old, as soon as we start, they start farting and they start, making little jokes. But it's really cool to be there trying to, or introducing these ideas and concepts to them. I think, I don't know. I don't know what it would be like trying to meditate at 4 because I never did that. But it's really cool that he'll actually initiate it and be like, can we meditate? And I'm like, yeah. And then we go to do it and he starts farting like it's a joke. It's like he's setting up the whole punchline for himself, you know what I mean? But still, like, I think that it helps me be a better father. It helps me be willing to take on the challenges as a father because it's not easy, especially when I got 3 by myself in the house and I'm homeschooling them most of the week. So it's hard for me to get work done. It's tough. But I think these practices definitely give me like a window into how to make it work. Because I don't know where I'd be right now if I didn't have them. I feel super blessed. Like they've come to the forefront since this pandemic. I don't know where I'd be literally if I didn't have like my Kung Fu teachers and those guys who were supporting me, my healer in Chicago, and just the ability to like tap in and see how I feel and create stronger boundaries around myself that like, all right, I need to be by myself for a minute. Like I just got to be quiet for a moment. I'd probably be high on drugs right now or in a horrible relationship or I don't know, who knows what, in jail. I don't know. They've definitely helped me keep on the right path.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for asking. That was a great question.
Michelle, do you have a question?
I don't have any questions, but I can start off our gratitude, if that works.
Yeah, I get it.
So I'm really grateful for being able to listen into this conversation. It's really beautiful, especially the fact of just all the things that connect us that we might not even think about. And that's always something that I'm searching for. And I always feel like, oh, maybe other people aren't really looking for that. Maybe they have everything they need. But hearing you talk about this and like what it means to you is really powerful. So I really love that. And on a more mundane note, I'm really glad I got to come in and listen to this while multitasking and working on a pretty mundane task at work, just doing my timesheets. So this was a great way to round out the day.
I heard that.
I love that. Mary, what are you thankful for?
Like I said before, always grateful to listen into these conversations between the two of you. And I wrote down recognizing self and others breeds compassion. So I'm grateful for all the opportunities that we have to recognize ourselves and others. And I'm looking forward to more of those. So thank you.
Yes. How about you, bud? What you thankful for?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Okay. I thought there might have been blood on there. I don't know. I'm thankful for you continuing to reach out with me and have these conversations. I wasn't in this good a mood today before I sat down with you to talk. So, I mean, that to me, that says a lot. You know what I mean? I have never met you in person before. This is our third time talking, but every time we talk, it's super stimulating. It feels like it lifts my energy up and points me in the right direction. I know I probably sound like, oh, he's super positive, which I try to hold that, but I don't always feel that way. But I think these conversations help me get clear about where I am. And it's like therapeutic. So I'm super thankful for you holding this space and inviting me in to share, because it's uplifting.
We got to co-host some stuff, man. We'll just do like Sid and Zion on life and the weird.
And the weird, yes.
And the
We
weird.
can get deeper in the weird.
I'm into it. So I am thankful for obviously this space and for you joining us. I always say everything you just said, like co-sign and echo. But I just really love how I look forward to these calls every week, but I really look forward to when we get to connect. And like you said, like we haven't ever met in person. And I think when concerts come back, when you're back on tour, when you're back like in your zone of genius, like I think I'm just going to have such a deeper appreciation for the art that you put out in the world. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving me a great song to shake my ass to. I fucking love Two Eyes, man. Like it is so good. Like it's just like, it is awesome. So for everybody on YouTube, thank you so much for hanging in with us. We ran a little bit over and I know it was worth it for me. So I'm not even going to apologize. So I hope everybody has a great rest of their evening. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.